Getting ready here. Good evening, good evening. All right. Massive crowd, unbelievable. All right. Getting with it. Let's see. Get started here. Okay, good evening, everyone. My name is Kyle Paul, and welcome back to The Full Scope. Thank you all for joining me here tonight on Wednesday. I was not here on Monday. I was actually out at a wedding, so honestly, and there's not really too much going on at the moment. It's pretty dry out there. It's kind of been the same old shit in the news. It's just boring. I've been thinking about some stuff to talk about. I don't know if you guys have seen the title for tonight. We're going to be talking about basically Western civilization, its importance, and its role. I'm also wearing a little bit different of an outfit tonight. Let me know what you guys think. I had to get my other stuff dry cleaned. It's been a minute. Got to do some maintenance with the professional outfit, but we're still here. We're still looking good. Kind of been growing out my beard a little bit. I don't think I want to let it get much more than that at the moment. I forgot how scratchy having this thing is on. It's like itchy. I kind of miss having my face clean, to be honest with you. I've had a beard for so long, like ever since I could grow one, I basically just had one up until about like maybe late last year. I started shaving, as I started getting thinner and my face and my jawline reappearing. It's looking pretty fresh, I'd say. Anyways, we're going to be talking a lot about tonight, and it's okay, well, I'm going to say this as I always say it. It's probably not going to be a long episode, but I tend to go on. I can talk. And we're just going to kind of go over a bit of why the West is important, its role in the world stage, and what's kind of happening right now as far as a lot of the agendas and stuff behind everything. It's almost like a recap. It's some motivational talking tonight. Honestly, we'll kind of talk a little bit also about some of the news. I've been thinking about it. I saw a couple things that are kind of interesting. Some of the local stuff here in the United States that have been, making me think about some potential threats and attacks that have been going on. There's some pretty odd stuff. And what's weird is like a lot of other streamers, a lot of other live content people have been kind of saying the same thing. Like there really isn't too much going on at the moment, and they're all like kind of covering the same things. And like one of the big things that's being covered right now is the all the disappearances of all the professors and science guys that are at the edge. I was listening to a few things. I listened to, who was it? Was it Tucker Carlson? No, it was another podcast I stumbled across that I was listening to a little bit about how all of these scientists are disappearing. My only real comment with that is that this has always been happening. Some of the people have been kind of tying it into potential alien like abduction, as if there's let's see how the theory goes, that there's aliens that have interest in this planet, and they're actively working to suppress us to make sure that we never progress after a certain point. And so when there's like certain scientists and certain people that gain certain amount of intelligence and certain amount of progression or possibility to progress mankind, apparently these people get taken out. Do I really know if that's true? I don't. I don't know if that's true. Is it impossible? I mean, anything's possible. But I don't know what I think about that. I mean, there's been some odd hints at a lot of strange things when it comes to extraterrestrials. We know my last episode was kind of about that, and kind of about like what the Antichrist might actually be in the world. But we're not going to talk much about anything like that tonight. But as far as like these scientists disappearing and why everyone's talking about it, I don't know. I think it's kind of a trend at the moment. These things have always kind of happened, whether it be big corporations trying to get people out of the way, or they're, revealing maybe already existing technology that's being used by other people. I don't know entirely what it is. However, there is a pattern to that for sure. There's definitely something going on, I won't deny. Whether it has to do with some kind of superior advanced race of aliens that does not want to make sure that we do not succeed in like becoming too powerful. Yeah, that's not impossible. I like to think about those kind of things. Maybe it's true. I don't really know if they're here or not. I mean, I don't know. It's weird to think about. And I guess a lot of the technology that a lot of these people tend to be behind usually has to do with, electromagnetic propulsion systems, anti-gravity, electrostatic propulsion. It's usually propulsion systems, exotic materials, and fusion, like actual fusion, like the power of a sun type fusion. There's a lot of stuff having to do with that, or other people that may be on the advanced side of medical industries and curing major diseases. There's a lot of stuff like that going around of people just going missing. Maybe it's a mixture of things. Maybe there is some kind of alien race monitoring us, of which I would call the demons and the Antichrist worshippers, that are here to suppress us and make sure that we never prevail. That's likely. And then on top of that, you probably have people who are corrupted, just typical human beings in this fallen world of its fallen nature, and some kind of mob-like mentality, are trying to keep their patents, their ideas, or maybe trying to steal ideas or kill people that might be a threat to their monopoly. What do I know? I'm not entirely sure, but I like to listen to a lot of that stuff. I think it's good to be informed, because like, really, is anything truly impossible in this world? Life exists here. Life exists. We exist. The odds of our existence are basically impossible. That the only thing that really points to, even in science, is that it's of design, which is really incredible. A lot more people nowadays too, even in the science field, and a lot of the younger generations are pointing even themselves more towards a creator, whether it be Christian or not. Most of them are Christian, people converting to Christianity. But it's all interesting stuff. Anyways, before I get any further, please like this video, follow my channel for more content, share this video, and leave me a comment. I like to hear from you guys. Tell me what you're thinking. Tell me what's on your mind. And maybe if you have any suggestions of stuff maybe you want to discuss, maybe things that I can talk about and do some research, let me know. Other than that, I just kind of do my own thing here. I'm out here talking, trying to spread awareness, spread truth, and ultimately motivate us and elevate ourselves. Elevate you guys along with me as we revolutionize ourselves and the world around us. Thank you all once again for tuning in with me. So, first off, I saw a couple things in the news I will comment on. Let's see here. Having to do with some of this local business that I saw in the news. I saw oddly in West Virginia that there's a chemical leak that killed 2 people and sent like 19 people into the hospital. Terrible news. Awful. Um, I guess it's some kind of silver recovery business or something like that. They use, some pretty heavy duty chemicals and, acids and stuff like that. That seems to be what it is. It's a violent reaction of chemicals and instantaneously overreacted. That's kind of odd. A lot of those things, it's very rare that that stuff kind of happens. And if any of you guys have been kind of paying attention to what's been going on, maybe even in the White House or a lot of the redistricting going on, and Trump's trying to get stuff redrawn up, maps redrawn up that favors a midterm win for the Republicans, but it's really not looking good. The Iran war is absolutely crushing the Republicans at the moment. And, you know, something's kind of odd with a lot of these attacks happening all at once. I mean, I can go through the news and, click on the United States, even just on Google, and you'll see that, there's fires going on. There's a shooting. Okay, so I guess there's now a shooting um, in Louisiana. What is this? In a hot. I'm not entirely sure where this took place in Louisiana or what the entire context that is, but now we have a mass shooting in one day. We have a giant chemical spill that killed 2 more people and injured almost 20. And now we have these massive wildfires in Georgia, and it's spreading into Florida. It's a bit off to me. And if you were to ask me, am I suspicious? Yes. Given the timing that we're heading into midterms and people, going, running for different offices, the Republicans are trying to maintain their hold, especially in, I believe they have Senate and the House. They're trying to maintain that, but they're not going to. Typically, the opposition of who's in the White House of the president, long story short, a lot of times the opposition ends up holding the House. All also around time that Trump announced another peace deal, a peace agreement, sort of say, or not really. So they announced some kind of peace talks that they want again on Saturday in Pakistan. They want to go back to the table. We already know that this happened, maybe what was it, a week ago, 2 weeks ago, and they did not succeed. Vance and his crew did not succeed on persuading Iran into any kind of peace deal. Iran is very empowered at the moment. They have China as a strong ally, other people in the world. Europe's not getting involved. And it's really looking like Iran against Israel in the United States. And it's not going good for us. We did that blockade all last week, to try and put more pressure on Iran, but it's not working. And all of this to say, today Iran had opened fire on 3 different ships, 3 different vessels in the Strait of Hormuz, and managed to harness 2 of them. So you have a lot of this commotion, almost like, to me, it seems like there is some kind of cooperation in a sense. There is something going on with that. This is my instinct. I don't have many facts, but if you kind of look at all this stuff playing out in the same day, it's almost like whatever forces are at play here, whether it be Iran, whether it be some kind of internal power, whether it's another shadow faction, a shadow government of one of many factions within our own country, working and coordinating something, trying to ensure a total loss of Republicans. I think that was inevitable, and that's why I don't think the attacks have anything to do in the United States, the ones that are local for us here in the United States. I don't think that has anything to do with an inside job because there's no need to, especially from our opposition. Now, could it be a punishment in a way where maybe there are some high-ranking, revolutionary Iranian Guard servicemen that made their way in to the country during the Biden administration when the border was open? And, there's these kind of sleeper cell attacks. Maybe this is what we're seeing as like a start of it, is that they now know that the Iranian regime knows that they can get away with certain things. They're blatantly taking control over this Strait of Hormuz. They're dominating the region. The United States has kind of failed to project its power. Sadly, I don't agree with the war, and I don't agree being out there because, once again, that's what we voted Trump in for, and he betrayed all of us. He betrayed his voter base. And now he failed horribly. And unless, some things change, I'll kind of continue on that path in a moment. But Iran is doing pretty good. They have no reason to sign a peace deal at the moment, especially if they're getting away with everything they're getting away with. And all of these attacks today, whether you want to call them attacks or disasters, chemical spills from, known chemical reactions that react immediately. And I can imagine that was somewhat explosive, and that's probably why people got injured, died. They probably got sprayed with highly acidic stuff, and it killed a lot of people, or killed 2 people and injured a lot of people, and that's going to be permanent damage. You have these fires going on, and then you also have a shooting, a mass shooting, all in one day. I don't want to say it's Iran, but maybe they're trying to really project some kind of power, make a statement that peace isn't on the table. And that's kind of scary because our position in the world is declining. This administration has failed us. We wanted the voter base on the right wanted Trump to pull things in back home, work on deportation, and project power in places like Cuba and Venezuela, and which we did in Venezuela, all right, and maybe gain control of Greenland and things like that affect us, and maybe help. Honestly, if anyone needs a regime change right now, it's Canada. The amount of evil laws that they're passing out there that encourage people to commit suicide legally, and they're working directly with China, and they're refusing to work with the United States on trade. It's just not a good situation for us here in the United States. And, why we're all the way out there, it's not for us. We know now that the voter base has no control, no say. Our representation is non-existent in the White House. Things that get passed, things that get voted on, what we want to be done in the White House, in our country, in our government to do for us is not being done. And now, here we are, 2026. It's becoming middle of the year. It's spring, and we're now in the middle of a war. There's no more deportations. We're not going to acquire Greenland anytime soon. That's off the table forever. And for the people that don't know, I did a video on this too, that Greenland was always on the agenda for the United States, and there's many strategic reasons why we need that. And a lot of it has to do with defense. A lot of it has to do with air superiority and missile defense, because Russia and the eastern part of the world, that's their direct route to send stuff. If you look at a globe, it's the shortest path for nuclear warheads and things like that to pass over Greenland and into the United States and on the East Coast. And Trump failed miserably at trying to acquire that in any way imaginable. And if he wasn't going to do it peacefully, he backed out and chickened out and didn't use any kind of force projection. But instead, we're dumping $200 billion of our taxpayer money into Iran, which that country would never have had a problem with us if we weren't just so blindly controlled and doing stuff and acting upon the needs and wants of Israel and their Zionist agenda. And We could. We've managed to get a peace treaty, or not a peace treaty, but a nuclear deal signed with Iran. These things, diplomacy is not impossible with these people. Persia and the Persians are very old. It's an ancient civilization. And, they've been interacting with Europeans in the West and Christians for a long period of time. Armenians live there peacefully in Iran, and, there's no bad blood between them. And, there's a lot going on. And, this episode's not going to be about the whole agenda having to do with the Zionists today. I know. Normally we tie that stuff in. I'm trying to refuse and refrain myself from going down the rabbit hole, but there is that agenda playing into everything. Now, these attacks, like I said, to sum that up, the local United States stuff, I think that is possibly the beginning and a power projection of Iran and potential sleeper cell stuff. You're not going to see the news call it that. Maybe not right away until they have some of the stuff under control. But I can almost guarantee there's something going on with that. That would line up with that. And then the other thing, the boat strikes, the Iran striking and seizing 2 ships. What do you expect? Look at this. They live in the region. They know the region. They don't want peace. We chose to attack them, and now they're going to make us pay for it in any way possible. And a lot of that's going to be through crushing our relationships in the world, crushing trade, disturbing the economy, and they don't need to necessarily do much more than hold out. They can do that because they have strong roots in the region, much stronger than Israel. That's why Israel wants them gone, is because they're the threat. And it's just not going good. It's not going good. And this weekend, mind you, the blockade, I think, happened over the weekend, then it stopped. We have a ceasefire deal now that's going to extend during the week. It's in order to control the markets once again. This is not new news. I'm not the only one talking about this point, but this is what Trump is doing as a strategy or a tactic to try to maintain some kind of control over the oil prices. But now, since during the week and the markets are open, you're going to see, okay, well, now there's another ceasefire to extend through the week in order to get us to the end of the week into some kind of peace talks. But we're going to have peace talks on the weekend when we have some leverage that we're going to threaten them with more attacks, more missile strikes, which haven't been working. I don't think they're going to continue to work. Ultimately, the news, this situation, having to do with Iran and the Middle East, the United States, we're not out of it. We're not going to be out of it. And it's going to be a long-term war. Unfortunately, I don't wish it. I want the other alternative, where we back out and just take the loss. It just won't happen. Not with Trump. Trump's going to drive us into this war against our will. And not that I think the left would have done any different. Kamala Harris would not have done anything different. Let me make that known. She would have gone right in as well and continued the whole Ukraine war. This is just a part of the ultimate agenda. Anyways, so tonight, now the West, Christendom, us, here in the United States, where we stand, where we have stood, where Europe has stood in the world. Obviously before Christendom, even the pinnacle of societies and civilization was still through the Mediterranean and the southern part of Europe with the pagans and a lot of the great Greek philosophers and many deep thinkers that created a lot of the things in the world, as far as when it came to sciences and how we perceive the world. The West has always been this seat in the world for beautiful art, beautiful music, deep intellectuals have come and gone, whether they even were born in the region, but people always sought out the West, Europe, and ultimately that extended and projected into the New World, into the United States, into the Americas, into Canada, and the modern situation. Inevitably, Rome converted to Christianity, and that spread out through the West. And the West in Europe and ultimately the United States, whether it be Catholic or Protestant, or in the Eastern Europe, Orthodoxy, we Europeans took that identity upon ourselves to make our civilization founded upon the church and Christendom and Christ and what that meant. And where that put us in the world is truly, whether people believe it or not, it's isolated in a sense. There is no other way to God. There is no other way to reject the world and be a part of the kingdom in heaven. And it's only through Christ. And he made this very well known, and many times that he spoke to his disciples and through his sermons, that he is the way, that he is the truth, and that he's the life. And it's not that other parts of the world that have Christians and large amount of Christians, not that they're, not a part of this. However, when we talk about civilizations and this world and who really decided to make their identity revolved around a religion that would be following Christ, it was Europe and the West. And as I've said, this isolates us because the world now is, well, not that we are against the world, but the world is also inheritedly against us. And this means other world religions, and that would include Judaism, that would include Islam. And we can see these things. We can see the evidence of this in the world, as Christians are the most attacked people, the most attacked physically and verbally and, sought out people, especially for their belief system in the world, and very much so in the Middle East. Look at what happened to Armenians. Look at what's going on with Ethiopians. Look what's going on with the Coptics. There's, the Muslims, they do the beheadings and, terrible atrocities and attacks. The Jews have always stated the Europeans, the successors to Rome and the Roman Empire, of which they hate, which they associate with the Catholic Church, and they hate the Pope, and that they seek, or at least not all Jews, but a certain faction that would make up most of them, in a religious sect that view Rome as the enemy, that view Christians ultimately as a part of that entire picture. The long-term plan for this, and I've said this before in the past, that yes, right now, the Jews and the media have been pushing the Judeo-Christianity agenda as a means to operate within the West, as they mean to infiltrate it slowly, and they have been, and they have successfully, to bring it to its knees, which we're witnessing right now in the moment, with the whole situation, and which is ultimately why Trump got allowed to run for president again, is that he's basically going to be the shotgun shell that decapitates the United States from the throne in the world. That being said, is it too late? No, I do not believe it's too late. This is why I'm here, which is why I'm doing this show, is to keep us aware, to keep us all involved, to combat this. And we really need to be grounded. This is a time in the world where we need to kind of stick by what we believe, and whether that is the teachings of Christ, and or you believe in Western civilization, even secularism, of which arose from the great thinkers of Christianity and the liberal mentality that arose from Christianity. The world did not know these things until Christianity went out into the world and preached love for once, preached love, that God is love, that God is pure love. In the past, that was not the case for gods. Gods were much more humane, as more mundane, more human, more, you would call that, of this world, worldly in a sense. And the pagan gods would, be more, called demons, or serving of the ruler of this world, who is ultimately, the deceiver. And this is why everything is happening today the way that it's happening. Yes, most of the world's Christians exist in, the Americas, and the largest Christian population, I believe, is still in the United States, if it's not China at this point, which actually there is a huge change in China. There's a lot of Chinese converting underground to Christianity and the Orthodoxy, which is actually very miraculous and beautiful, if you were to ask me. For us here in the United States, this is the time for us to be involved. Love your church. Yes, I understand people have problems with institutions, and there are corrupt ones. There is corrupt Catholic churches. There is corrupt, even, I've heard stories of my own church, the Armenian Apostolic, of things going bad and things happening even in the Orthodox, or a lot in the Protestants. And you can't let these evils of the world define what the actual doctrine is of Christianity. And we need to rally behind this, because I love C.S. Lewis, and reading a lot of his works and the way he explains how society is in the West, and how truly our identity is projected from Christianity at its core and its roots, whether people like it or not. As I said a little bit earlier, the secularism and that idea, the separation of church and state, that came from the WASPs, the Protestants that came here and wanted to reform and redo everything, separate the overruling monarchy of the Catholic Church. Now, do I think personally that it worked out for the best? No, it worked great during the Enlightenment for a time, but ultimately it's turning out to be a rabbit hole that's leading us into this extreme liberalism that's leading to people focusing on the demonic forces in this world, whether it be on the left wing or the right wing. There's a lot of right-wing people who are, falling for the Zionist agenda, the Judeo-Christian agenda, for the war hawk, bring about the third temple and death to mankind apocalypse, bringing on the Antichrist kind of ordeal. That's one way that's going wrong. And then you have the left, the other extreme, the almost like mania and disconnection of reality, this unhealthy disconnection of reality. Yes, God does ask for us to be intellectual while we're here, to be of this world, to be in the world, but not of it, a saint has once said. And we need to really look at ourselves here as a civilization and really ask ourselves, what did create the peace, the love, the the greatness and the Constitution that was written. Why was it written? And it was because of a sick and, people being sick and tired of the old world, of the old ways of things, of the warring, going to war on behalf of offense instead of being defensive, and not putting Christ at the center of things, in the center of our entire culture and civilization. That's why, the pilgrims came over here, was to, well, I guess the Protestants, to reject the Catholic Church. But what we are in for today is leading to a larger, sorry, I was reading some of your guys' comments here in the chat. I see you guys. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you. You're all wonderful. What this is leading to, even what this war in Iran, in my previous episode talked about, the alien antichrist kind of theory that aliens will be on the scene at some point. The blood moon, old mysticism, pagan belief that we're going to usher in this new change, this new time based on war and sacrifice. This is all leading up to a greater conflict in the world. And there is not only a divine purpose behind this, of which would be to inevitably lead to the great judgment and the point of where Christ will no longer tolerate evil and wickedness in the world. That final judgment will be at hand. This is the beginning. I guess after he died on the cross, you would say that was the beginning. It's been leading to that point ever since. But now we're really witnessing some severe changes that people feel inside spiritually, that we can physically see being carried out in the world today, that relates to not only scripture, but just like weird pagan beliefs and things that, mock Christianity, that go through the, like I said, pagan mysticism. They're going to create a new religion where there's no more differences in belief. It's going to be the great... it's a part of the Dark Enlightenment, as I've talked about in my past episodes. How do I put this? This is the radical shift from an agenda being carried out by these people, these elites. They want to get rid of Christianity. And when you look at a lot of the paperwork, you can see that ultimately the Zionists want the extreme Muslims as their soldiers. They inevitably want this. They're buying themselves time. The Zionists are buying themselves time within our country by portraying the Judeo-Christianity propaganda. Because it's not the long-term plan. It doesn't work out for them. They cannot have Christ in the picture as the Messiah. They cannot have the love, the God of whom is all love and infinite and ineffable, a part of the picture. They need their mundane God of war, of who is a demon, of who is quite literally anti-Christ. And so inevitably they realize that our civilizations cannot mix. They cannot coexist forever. And what we're seeing with the war in the Middle East is the push by the Zionist Third Temple Death Cult to force the free Muslims into some sort of submission to Israel in order to further call out this, to push the greater agenda, to allow, which, this is purely theoretical, which could be the case for the Antichrist, to allow, to pave the way, to make the great welcoming of the alien Antichrist thing, which very well might be a thing, if it's not just some physical person on Earth. I think there's good enough evidence out there that would suggest that it could be a extraterrestrial type being, not of this world, whether it be interdimensional, whether it be, interuniversal or whatnot. I'm not necessarily sure. And as the title of this episode states, that is why the West is unique. Why Christendom, Europe, the United States, all of the Americas, and the massive Christian populations, they want that to disappear. And you can tell by who owns the media and who is in all of the major institutions in technological and military tech. And ultimately the propaganda that's been pushing us away from Christ on a large scale, which is turning out to fail. Thankfully, that's why we're not out of hope. We're not out of the fight. Our country is not defeated. And you can see by who owns the media, who is pushing the complete, demonic agenda of self-worshiping and, the sex everywhere, the making fun and mocking of Christ. I've seen, look at the Olympics that went on that one time where they just did a complete mockery of Christ and the Final Supper, and, how awful that was. Sadly took place in Europe. However, we still have the world's most Christians, for sure. And I'm not, I think everyone should go to church and come to know God and come to know God through Christ. Even the secular people who just want to live peacefully in the projected Western civilization, the projected liberal Christendom that exists. You need to stand for it. You need to stand for that creation, however you see it, and come to know where it came from, and to, stand by, protect it, because it's what allows our lives here, and I really think about it all the time, where I'm like, if this country does fail, where will I go? Where can I go in the world where I'll have the same liberties, be able to have access to the same wealth, my ability to practice my faith freely? And there's maybe but a handful of places in the world, very small and very difficult places to get into, difficult countries to become a part of, that don't just accept everyone. Which is why I want this country to succeed. I don't hate this place, and I love my country, and I want to conserve our values and conserve our Constitution. And I do not want to see mass, I don't want to see the left turn into the whole super abortion country of everyone's baby's bad and babies are bad and we need to genetically modify all the babies. We can't let that happen. We can't let the lab grown thing happen on the left. We can't let the constant military pro third temple death cult thing happen on the right. And this is where we need to get involved. We need to reject that. Those are the demonic forces at play, and whether they're backed by direct spiritual and visible stuff that's demonic, which I believe is true. There might be physical demonic beings that are in on this, and this is the reality, the landscape of today. And, you might call me crazy or a conspiracy theorist, maybe a bit. I think a lot of conspiracies end up being true, unfortunately. And the more you stay in prayer with God, the more you stay in a state of meditation and constant communication with the ineffable God through Christ and the Holy Spirit, you come to know and understand our flawed nature here on this earth, and you understand where and what that actual darkness and demonic forces are, and you can kind of start to begin to discern the two of what is actually good and what is actually bad. So we need something new. If we're going to be in a time of radical change, let us utilize this moment. It seems like the elites want to utilize this moment of change, and many different factions want to utilize this moment for their version of the change, their version of the New World Order, whether it be the atheist, abortion, baby murder state where everyone can chop off their genitals, or the constant, like I said it before, the death cult, Jew worshipping, Goyim enslavement agenda. We don't want that either. And this is where we have to become revolutionary. We have to become reactionary. We need to settle in and stand for and get behind what we truly believe in and be adamant and be bold. Be involved, even in your church. Say you go to church and you're not really, say you just go to church and you're there to be there in prayer. You can get involved in many different ways, even in your church, whether it be joining a specific group. Many churches have many outings and gatherings and people and guilds and clubs, and networking with good-hearted people that care, that put in effort and self-sacrifice is so crucial, and is such a core part of our identity in the West and what it was founded upon. The good people, the good-hearted people. And that's why I am right-wing, is because I feel like the right-wing are the ones that are more strong in a sense to protect those people. Anyways, that is just some stuff for us to all think about. We need to be involved. You need to have conversations with people. Participate. Physically participate. Be present. There's something so nice about it and freeing. And it's something so unique in the world that we have here in the United States, the liberty of practice of religion, though it's been abused. And as I said earlier in the episode, there's many churches that are very far away from Christ, in my opinion. I'm not the ultimate judge of the world, but there's things, as I stay in prayer with God, you can kind of see which churches, the mega flying churches where the pastor's putting on a show. I can't say, I don't think Christ is there. That's my opinion. I like the belief, or I believe, I shouldn't say I just like, but, I believe receiving the body and blood is true, the bread and the wine. I believe that is very part of the healing of this body and the nature of what this place is. And wherever you can go to receive that, I say go there. Go to that place, whether it be the Catholic Church. I've had this conversation with somebody who is poorly affected by the Catholic Church, somebody I had recently just met. And I'm an Armenian Orthodox. However, I will stand by the Catholic Church and credit where credit's due. I've met some amazing Catholic people, and the belief, their doctrine is actually very on par. It's very, very good. It's very close to what I would believe in. And what I'm getting at here is, don't let a church steer you away by its people directly. Yes, I know I just said the community's great. A perfect church, you would have a great community and a great priest, a great pastor, and all as well. But say, for instance, all you really do have is one church. You want to go to a Catholic church and maybe there's only one in town. Don't let people steer you away. We're all hypocrites at the end of the day. To be humble is to admit we're all a bit hypocritical, that we're flawed beings. People say things, people do things that go against the Bible. We're not perfect. Christ has made this known that he does, knows this. That's why he came down here, is to help us, to heal the sick and the wounded. Sometimes you can meet and learn amazing and brilliant life-changing things in a church that has parishioners that aren't so great. But maybe the priest is a fantastic person who's very knowledgeable and humble. Or maybe it's the other way around. Maybe the priest is, mediocre and just wants, to donate money, but you'll meet amazing people that will sacrifice their time for you, to help you, to maybe even push you in a direction in life that you need to go. This is why I think it is important to just be involved one way or another. Find a place to go to, find a church, find a community, find a gathering, find a book club even. Find some, where I'm getting at is, maybe not the book club. I guess maybe whatever gets you out. I'm not against book clubs. I kind of want to join one. In this day and age, my advice is to spiritually find a sanctuary, a church, the temple of God, of which is what we would call, a sanctuary, church, a community, and or a group of politically like-minded people. Now, even this, I will accept my show and my few dedicated followers here as a part of the like-minded political side of things. That's one way to do it. Share my show. Tell some people hey, I know this guy Kyle Paul and he talks about some very great things. Help me out and I will help you guys out by being the guy that can project and represent, what is good and what is left in this world that is to be good, what is to be saved. Hey, maybe you'll find those politically like-minded people at the book club. I'm not against the book club. I like book clubs. I'm actually trying to get involved in one. We'll see how that goes. Anyways, that is all that I have for you guys tonight. Remember, do not be afraid to stand for yourself as an American. Do not be afraid to stand for yourself as a Christian. Talk to other people. Sometimes even the most rough around the edges looking people tend to be the most in need of a conversation, and they actually enjoy conversations that are deep and not just so bland and, of this world and mundane. Go out and be that person, be the revolution within and exterior. Once again, my name is Kyle Paul. Please like this video, follow my channel for more content. I am live Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, so long as nothing interferes. I try to be here, 7 p.m. on the East Coast. Leave me a comment. Please tell me what you think of this episode. Let me know what's on your mind. Let me know if you need any sources or direction of where to get involved and how to get involved in many different ways. Thank you all for tuning in with me tonight. May God bless each and every one of you, and remember that together, all of us here, we are the change, and we're going to continue to grow. We're going to continue to pass on this message, my message, and ultimately your guys' message out into the world as we seek our ultimate mission now is seeking that change of representation in our government that reflects us here, and that we no longer become betrayed, stabbed in the back. It's as simple as that. That's our ultimate near sight goal. Good night, everybody. God bless you all. Have a good night.